those of you who don't know me, my name is Rev.Zina. Forget the last name, just call me Rev Z. And I want to welcome everyone who's live streaming with us today. If you feel inspired by what you hear or you want more information about Universal Spirit Center, just drop something in the chat and tell us about yourself, where you live, and how you're tuning in. We're really interested in that. So, as mentioned, you thought I was going to bring up ballet, didn't you? And I will. But as mentioned, this is a really significant point for me to be here, to be able to share my journey and some spiritual wisdom that I've acquired through being in our philosophy since the 1990s and going through all of the different phases of development that are required to ultimately become a minister. So standing up here on stage is super significant for me because as Gino mentioned, I just got back after living in Bellingham, Washington for 4 years, and there I served as a co-spiritual director for a community. And I had this yearning, this calling to come home. And this calling just it wouldn't quiet. You know how it is? It wouldn't be quiet, and I had to finally respond. And I had to make some tough choices to bring myself back. And so I'm here and I'm home, and I'm really happy about that. My talk is going to be pretty traditional in the sense that I'd like to kind of explore in our minds rather than having some formal process. And what I'd like us to do is think about the choices that we face. And boy, there's many in life, isn't there? Yeah. One of the things that I think is important to remember is the power that is contained in choice making, because we really are powerful beings. Our philosophy always talks about how we can create the life that we desire based on our beliefs, our faith, and our convictions. So I have a question for you tonight. Can you recall a moment that changed you, fundamentally changed you as a human being? This question was posed in a magazine with several other questions, but it really called out to me because of the results. It was rare for people to mention, yeah, man, I went on that great vacation. Ooh, baby, I got that promotion. Oh my gosh, I have so much material achievement. Everything is wonderful. Instead, overwhelmingly, the response from individuals was that it was the transformational challenges, the transformational issues that brought them, the challenges that changed their lives. To do that change, all agreed that they had to face what choices needed to be made. I have a personal story, I'm sure you do too, many personal stories about transformation. I think just inherent in being on the spiritual journey, we're here to grow, we're here to evolve, we're here to find a truth about our own authentic nature and our own authentic selves. And so by virtue of that, we get different situations and experiences in our lives that bring forward opportunities to have transformational growth. And many times they appear as challenges. What I do know is that through all of those in my own personal life, and maybe you share this with me, is that I grow, I become much more resilient, and I begin to develop a deeper spiritual understanding and a discovery of who and what I truly am. So I would like to invite you for a moment just to kind of breathe that in. Yeah. reflect on what choices brought you to this moment. The truth is, if we were to go back through this whole orchestrated timeline of our own individual lives, and we changed one thing of that journey, we would not be who we are today. And everything is leading us to a greater understanding, as Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind and Spirit, reminds us that everything is leading us to remove any obstacle that stands in the way of our recognizing our divinity. It's not an easy call, but it truly is the call that I believe those that are on the spiritual path are seeking to walk towards. So we're going to kind of set the tone, what's navigating us through these ideas. One is faith over fear. You know, we hear that a lot. But do we do it with every day, every challenge that we face? You know, some choices are small. What am I going to have for dinner? Easy, right? Well, not really easy, but definitely a question that we ask that isn't life transformative. I don't know, unless you're eating something really kind of unique and original. But then there's those ones that are life-changing. The ones that are like having to say goodbye to somebody you really loved. The ones like that job that you thought was your identifier of who you were, your career, ended. Sickness and illness happens. Aging parents, we walk them home. These kinds of challenges are life-changing. And these kinds of challenges are the choices we face. Not what am I going to do to control life, but how will I respond? Hope is an action word. And the good news, I think, for all of us is that we're never powerless, ever, even if we think we are. And breaking open to new possibilities is really that no matter what life throws at us, we always have the power to choose. How will I respond to what's happening and presenting itself in my life at this moment? Faith over fear is really, it's such an interesting concept. And I think my time in Bali, which I just returned after being there for 2 weeks, I do some projects for a spiritual travel company and was blessed with the opportunity to go. It's my second time there, but this time I was really, really present to the experience because I was going through a life transformation. The last time I was there, I tended not to see some of the things that now sunk in as unique and very special. One of which is, as we put our hands together, go ahead, Om Sasyastu. And this means that I recognize in you the beauty, the peace. I recognize in you your divinity. And you know what? The Balinese people don't live in fear. They don't live in fear. They are actually faith forward. They don't wait to see, oh, how's this person going to treat me before I say something like, hi, how are you? Instead, they meet each and every individual throughout the day with that greeting. And we keep in mind that that island is the number one place to travel in the world. So it's even more amazing that they do that greeting to strangers every day, all day, as travelers come into their country and go to the resorts or to the beaches and are experiencing the Bali lifestyle. James Baldwin talks about this faith over fear, and I think it's kind of reminiscent of where we are right now in this world. We're in a world that is very challenging, and it is very important to remember that we have choice and that we're not powerless. James Baldwin was interviewed. First off, he was a philosopher, a writer, a deep thinker, and he was interviewed by a UK journalist, the 60s or so. And the UK journalist was really interested in, why this beautiful black man would live in a country that hated him. And he, had the interview, and at the end of the interview, he's like, "Welcome here. Come live here. You can write. You don't have to worry about assassination attempts. Your life is going to be absolutely unbelievable." And he said, "Yeah, but the problem with that is if you break faith with yourself, you betray first yourself and every single person that you encounter." Despite it being hard, he chose to have faith over fear. And he chose to stay here and to be the messenger of the possibilities inherent in the human experience. And those possibilities live in us. Those possibilities are who we are. Our truth is our anchor, and it connects us to something greater than ourselves. And I think faith over fear is vitally important, because when we really do ask for guidance, ask for help, ask for an issue or a challenge to not be resolved from some outside source, but to have the insight and clarity to resolve what is coming our way. I think that we are faith in action when we are able to apply that idea that there truly is a reciprocal connection. Spirit, the divine, the presence loves us as much as we love it. And it waits for our asking, and it guides when we ask. So the bottom line is, let's rely on our spiritual resources, because that's what we have. A community like this has spiritual resources. There's so much stuff online now where you can kind of plug in. It's always wonderful to be around family and friends that have, an understanding of who we are. They see us. And it's painful when we're around people who don't recognize the fact that we are spiritual beings having this experience called life. However, it's ours because we know responsibility. And taking up that mantle and relying on spiritual resources that surround us, we begin to really understand that we're never alone on this journey. There's always companions, saints and angels, mentors, and people who see us. And they'll always show up just at the right time, don't they? Another thing about spiritual resourcing that it's important is we can garnish a lot of strength and wisdom from tapping in. And, resilience is always the after effect. So sometimes when it's really, really hard, I tell the people that I spiritually counsel, sometimes when it's really, really hard, just wait one more minute for that miracle to happen. We're in this world at this time to do the great work at hand. And it's really not for the timid at heart. Because as we look out in the landscape of what's happening in the world, we are constantly reminded not of who we are, but of the desire for the operating world at the moment, at the consciousness it's at, is trying to change what we really know. So let's not lose faith and conviction. Breaking open to new possibilities. This is probably my favorite thing because, I've grown a lot, and I'm sure each of you have as well. And this is the place that I think, are we broken, or are we going to break open with a situation or an event in our life? And the good news is pain is never the final destination. Never. In fact, it's a doorway to our greater understanding of what's next. And so when we're, paralyzed in decision making, not knowing what choices to make, sitting at the threshold is a very healthy thing to do. And then there comes the time, and the Course in Miracles talks to us about this. It says, you've come to the end of the road. You can go left. You can go right. You can just stay where you are. But there'll come a day, one day, you don't know when you will need to make a decision. And I think individually, culturally, and globally, we are at the decision-making point. It's a pivotal point to really recognize that a great arising of consciousness and a great arising of compassion, understanding, liberation, and a feeling of connection with our human experience and our human brothers and sisters is at hand, despite what it looks like. It's the hardest moments that we meet our most authentic selves. Wow, I had that resilience. I did that. I survived that. I lived through that. We all know the story. It's our own story. But the feelings, the process, the understanding of what it takes to make it through the hard choices, that's something that's very individual. And when I think of this, I can't help but to bring us back to Baldwin and his reminder, we're all connected, every day and in every way. And as the Science of Mind principles teaches us, not only are we connected, but anything we're looking at is looking back at us. And so the person that we are looking at and judging and saying, oh my God, what a, I won't use that word. You know the word I was going to use. We could have been them. We could have been them. The person who inspires us, we could be them. We get to decide every day who we will become. The conclusion I have for us tonight is really, really simple. The choices we make is an invitation. It's a call to courage. At this time, in this part of the process of humanity's unfoldment. And yeah, it is individual. We all have to manage our own individual lives. And yet, anything that we do that betters us, our peace of mind, through prayer and practice, benefits others. So no matter what choices you face, you're not powerless. I think I'm repeating it because it's so important to remember. And it's the smallest acts of courage that define us. When hate is around, we choose love. When we think we don't have something important to say, we speak our truth. When we don't feel like doing it, we show up anyways. It changes lives. And you may be that very inspiration walking on the planet at this time that can inspire somebody else. You might be the perfect person at the perfect time in the perfect place to tell somebody, I see you. Our final reflection as we come into this, and then I'd like to pray with us, is really our job is to remember we're at choice. Even if we can't choose what happens to us, we can always choose how we're going to respond. And what I really would like to ask you, since I asked the question at the very beginning, is what will you choose? What will you choose? And I leave you with that. After my prayer, I want to get to know and have a few moments to chat with you. And thank you so much for being here. So let's go ahead and connect with ourselves, our inner self. Let's bring that right down into the seat of our souls. That divine life that that is always moving and having its being, that life that I know to be presence, Allah, Buddha, God, the Christ consciousness, that presence that manifests in so many different ways, described in 10 million words, is one thing: love. That love intelligence moves me, and I know that it moves each and every person here at this gathering tonight. It moves us to a raised consciousness that only can be connected to itself, through itself, as the divine. We are it, walking in its form, individualized and blessed. And so I am knowing that the choices to be made are made in a prayerful understanding of what is needed for our evolution, for our expression, and our growth. And so I'm grateful. And in gratitude, I simply release, and together we say, and so it is.
That's awesome. Thank you. Okay. This just doesn't want to do it. All right. Thank you, Rev.Zina.
Thank you for having me.
It's so beautiful to have you here tonight. And I'm just wondering, can I ask you a couple of questions?
You please.
So I love that our center is really starting to talk about what's happening in the world and how we're going to participate.
Yes.
So the other day, just briefly, well, I'll preface it by saying I saw a video that shook me to my core. And I was at the bank and I saw these three people having an encounter, that it was a Tesla involved and there was screaming. And there was a lady that was in fear that had the Tesla. And the video inspired me to step up, to say something.
Yes.
Because silence is, I think, how we have gotten to this space. And so I walked over and I said, come on, let's take a breath. Let's everybody take a breath. And in that, another man came and stepped up beside me. And he said, let's breathe together. And so when you ask, because the scary part is, what if they attack me?
Yes.
What if they attack me? But the importance of us stepping into something. I'm not saying people have to do that, because I know that was crazy. But we moved to a space where people were able to de-escalate.
Yes.
And the man said this question. He said this statement to the lady. He said, there's nothing that she can do at this moment that can change how you're feeling. So when we're faced with that, because there's nothing that the lady that was screaming at the woman that had the Tesla, and I understand her anger and her frustration, what would you suggest us to approach the feeling tone, the nature, to be able to bring somebody to a calm state?
Yeah, I mean,
that's a big question.
It's a big question. No pressure. There's no pressure here tonight. I can only speak of my own experience in that rather than telling people exactly what I think they should do. And I think that a situation that I encountered was with a brother who is of a different persuasion when it comes to his political viewpoints, and trying to find no fighting involved with the conversations, because there's this upmanship of, oh, I think it's this, no, I think it's that. And I found myself as a minister stepping out of the ministerial role, and I said, I'm going to tell you exactly what I think of you because of what you believe. And I don't know what changed except for going back to the idea of prayer. It wasn't really even at the moment. It was almost like it wasn't the right time to say anything. And so I had to sort of distance myself for a moment to get clarity in my own mind about how I wanted to show up for this experience. Clearly I'm going to see my brother again.
Yes, yes, yes.
Or maybe not.
Yeah.
Back to your point, there's families right
Yeah.
now that are actually separated
Yeah.
because we can't see eye to eye. We can't talk anymore. We have a mentality of who's right, who's wrong,
Yeah.
and trying to find peace within that requires a great deal of spiritual belief and conviction that this, all of it, has a long story. God writes long stories. We've been in a historical evolution with humanity that has brought us to our knees, and we have always risen. We have always found the new hope and the new light that brings us into awareness that we really are here to be with and for one another. And so, in your situation, I think you handled it quite well. And I can't help to think that it was that thought, that silence between the thoughts, where we allow spirit to step in. And that calm comes. And I have seen it a million times that the receiver of that automatically feels the presence that is in us and is reminded of, oh, maybe I. And so with my brother, we can't talk, this is him.
Yes,
We
yes.
can't talk about a lot of things,
Right.
but I never want what's happening right now and my choices to make it so that we don't love each other.
I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
I think that was so beautiful. The silence between the moment and spirit comes in. So let's give Rev.Zina another big round of applause.
Thank
Really
you.
beautiful. What a way to go. Let's see if I can get, all my mics are just acting totally crazy right now. Okay. All right. Still not going to do it. All right. So thank you for being here for our Wednesday night gathering. And once again, just to remind you, coming up soon, next Wednesday, we will have Maria Teresa here doing our crystal bowls, the psychic fair that will be coming up, and then last but not least, our wonderful Pat Andrus that will be here doing poetry. So we thank you for all of your loving support in every way that you can. And for those of us that saw Sunday, we have a nice new little jingle. $8.50. Come on, y'all. $8.50. And that's for our virtual community as well, that helps support us to keep everything moving, and not only moving, but expanding. So I want to thank you all for being here tonight, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings.